Hello, Scorpio. There are wounds so deep they don't need to be spoken out loud because your soul has been carrying them for so long. Your body already knows every detail by heart. You haven't forgotten how it felt the moment you watched the person you trusted most turn their back on you. Not just walk away, but leave behind a version of you that collapsed in a world you thought was safe. You don't need to dress your pain up as some beautiful lesson, because the truth is, you were betrayed, you were hurt, and a part of you died quietly while no one noticed. And then, as the world stayed quiet, they began to fall apart. Not because you cursed them, but because everything you gave, your loyalty, your truth, your unwavering heart, was never something they could replace. Maybe they tried to keep smiling, tried to love again, tried to fill the void, but deep down, they know they lost something irreplaceable. You don't have to wish for karma. The collapse of what they built after they walked away from you was never in your hands. It was already written in the sacred balance of things the universe always enforces. What's strange is that while they fell, you began to rise. Not in some big, dramatic way like the movies, but slowly, quietly. Like cracks forming in dry ground after a long drought, you learned to live with your brokenness. Then learned how to pick up the pieces, not to make your heart look like it used to, but to rebuild it into something wiser, stronger, more discerning. They can come back. They can apologize, cry, even weg. But they'll never truly understand the journey you walked alone, the nights you fought through the anger, the loneliness, the fear that maybe you weren't worthy of real love. But that darkness was where you found yourself. You stopped needing someone to save you because you saved yourself. And now, if they return, they'll meet a version of you they never imagined. Not colder, not harder, but different. You've learned to hold your softness for those who earn it. You've learned not to hand over your soul to someone who isn't ready to hold it with care. You no longer chase validation. You no longer need someone else's love to feel complete. You might forgive them, but forgiveness isn't forgetting. Forgiveness is how you cut the final thread of pain that once kept you tied to their memory. It's how you take your power back without needing revenge. But that doesn't mean they get to walk back in freely. Not this time. Now, they must show up differently because you are different. They must prove that their change is real, that they've done the work, not just said the words. And here's the truth. Scorpio, your silence right now is more powerful than anything you could say. They'll feel it. They'll feel the boundary you've created, not to block love, but to protect your worth. Because when a Scorpio has been betrayed, love will never be given the same way again. Love after pain becomes sacred, earned, and deeply intentional. Let them feel it. Let them realize you are no longer accessible just because they regret their decisions. Let them understand that your loyalty was never something cheap. And if they truly want to come back, they'll have to walk through fire the same way you did. And you don't need to rush. You don't owe anyone your heart just because they're finally sorry. You have the right to wait, to observe, to feel. And if it never feels right again, that's okay too. You've grown too much to shrink yourself for anyone who couldn't see your value the first time. Because the sacred thing, Scorpio, the truly divine thing, is not being loved again. It's loving yourself so deeply that you will never again accept anything less than truth, consistency, and soul-deep respect. That's the journey you're on. The journey from being broken by someone else to being whole by your own hands. And no apology, no return. No regret can take that victory away from you. But here's the thing, Scorpio, the part they never expected, the twist the universe has been quietly preparing. Is this the one who left? The one who broke you? Is coming back. Yes. with guilt in their eyes, with trembling hands, with memories that won't let them sleep. They will come back crying, not just with tears on their face, but with a soul that is cracked open, finally feeling the weight of what they threw away. They'll reach for you not because they want control, but because they finally understand what it means to lose something sacred. They might say the words you once begged to hear. They might whisper that they've changed, that no one compares, that they were wrong. And maybe for a second, your heart will tremble not because you still belong to them, but because some part of you still remembers how much it used to. But don't mistake the echo of an old wound for a present-day truth. The difference now is that you've grown into someone who doesn't confuse longing with loyalty. You don't owe your heart to anyone just because they're finally crying. Because Scorpio, the power dynamic has shifted completely. They're not coming back to the same person they walked away from. They're coming back to someone who no longer waits at the window, someone who doesn't crumble when they hear the doorbell, someone who doesn't mistake pain for passion or silence for peace. They're returning to find a Scorpio who has rebuilt their identity without them, who has poured energy into healing instead of hoping, who has learned how to breathe without depending on the air someone else provides. You are not the victim anymore, not even close. In fact, this whole time, while they were trying to silence the guilt, numb the memories, or distract themselves with replacements, you were undergoing the kind of transformation that doesn't make noise but changes everything. You were shedding layers. You were meeting yourself for the first time without them. And now you're standing in a place they can't even reach without trembling. Because now, Scorpio, the decision is yours. Not from a place of vengeance, not out of ego, but from awareness. You have the power to choose. You can look into their eyes and see the regret without letting it manipulate your compassion. You can hear their apology and still walk away in peace. Or you can choose to rebuild something new, but on your terms, with your boundaries, with your timeline. The difference now is that you know your worth. Not because they finally see it, but because you finally do, and they'll feel it. They'll feel the way you hold yourself differently. They'll notice how your words no longer bend to accommodate their comfort. They'll sense that the access they once took for granted is no longer granted without intention. And for the first time, they'll understand that the version of you they abandoned has died, and in their absence, a version of you was born that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and doesn't pretend anymore. That version of you is honest. You may still feel love. You may still care. But now you know that love is not enough. Not without consistency. Not without accountability. Not without proof that they have changed, not just for you, but because they couldn't keep living in the denial that once made it easy to hurt you. You're not here to babysit someone else's transformation. You're not here to be the reward for someone who only learned to appreciate you in your absence. You're here to choose what honors you. And it's not just about this person returning. It's about what their return represents. It's about the cosmic mirror the universe is holding up to you, asking, are you still the person who accepts less just because it's familiar? Or are you someone who now knows how to pause, how to breathe, how to let go of what once felt like a lifeline, and realize that the real lifeline is you? That's the test. Scorpio, not whether you forgive, not whether you forget, but whether you remember who you became in their absence, and whether you're willing to let that version of you lead the way forward. And here's the quiet truth. This person may genuinely regret everything. They may have done the inner work. They may be telling the truth now in ways they couldn't before, but even that doesn't obligate you. Their pain is not your responsibility. Their healing doesn't need your presence. You can wish them well. You can even love them still. But you do not need to hand over your peace just because they finally learned their lesson. Because your healing wasn't just about surviving what they did, it was about remembering that you were always whole, always worthy, even when they made you feel like you weren't. It was about choosing yourself when no one else did. And now, the power you hold isn't in saying yes or no. It's in knowing that you are free to decide either without guilt, without pressure, without fear. You're not playing the role of the wounded anymore. You are the author of your own peace, the gatekeeper of your energy, the protector of your growth. And if someone wants to be let back in, they will have to prove that they are capable of meeting the version of you that doesn't settle for less than real. Not perfect, but real, honest, steady, safe. So when they come back, Scorpio, when the tears fall, when the words pour out, when the apology comes wrapped in desperation, remember this. You are no longer the one waiting to be chosen. You are the one who chooses. And you choose from strength, not from fear, not from history, not from loneliness. You choose from power. You choose from truth. You choose from love. But this time, love for yourself first. That's where your real transformation lives. And Scorpio, as you stand in the space between what was and what could be, there is something even deeper at work, something that goes beyond apologies and second chances. This is no longer just about heartbreak or reunion. This is about karma. Not the kind that punishes with thunder and fire, but the quiet kind, the kind that returns to each soul exactly what it offered to others. This person is not suffering because you wished it upon them. They're suffering because the energy they put into the world has made its way back. That's how karma works. It doesn't forget. It doesn't rush. And it never misses its mark. Everything they did, the silence, the betrayal, the denial of your love has echoed back into their life in ways they never anticipated. And that's not cruelty. Scorpio, that's balance. That's the universe restoring what was broken not to hurt them, but to teach them. They are now learning in solitude what your presence once gave freely. They are feeling the void of what they once dismissed. This is not your revenge. This is their curriculum. But what's even more important than karma is what the universe is trying to show you right now. This isn't random. This timing, this exact moment where they show up again. After you've done the inner work, after you've finally started to breathe again, this is divine synchronization. It is not a coincidence. It's a test, a gift, and a mirror all at once. The universe is asking, now that you know your worth, what will you accept? It's asking, now that you've healed, will you go back to what broke you? Or will you trust that something even greater is unfolding? Because you didn't just survive. Scorpio, you've gone through a spiritual transformation so raw, so personal, that no one can truly understand it but you. You've walked through the fire of abandonment. You've stared at the ruins and chosen to rebuild not the same old version of you, but something stronger, deeper, more aligned. You didn't just wait for them to return. You evolved. You became someone with sharper intuition, quieter strength, and a deeper connection to yourself. You became the version of you that no longer settles for being half seen, half heard, or half loved. That is the true miracle here, not that they're coming back, but that you no longer need them to feel whole. That your worth is no longer up for debate, that your love, your loyalty, your time are sacred offerings, and anyone who wants to hold them must come with clean hands and a clear heart. So when the past comes knocking, let karma speak for itself. Let divine timing prove its intelligence, and let your transformed soul make the decision not from old wounds, but from the wisdom those wounds gave you. You don't owe anyone another chance, but you do owe yourself the life you were born to live. a life of depth, of meaning, of truth chosen from clarity, not pain. That's what this moment is about. Not closure, not reunion, but alignment. And that, Scorpio, is your real victory. And Scorpio, perhaps the most sacred truth buried beneath all of this, beneath the return, the regret. The recognition is that this was never just about love. The person who broke you may have been the spark, but the fire that followed had nothing to do with them. Because what burned was not just your heart, but your illusion. What collapsed was not just a relationship, but an identity you had outgrown, and now, standing in the ashes of what once was, you are being offered something you never would have reached if they hadn't walked away. This is your golden season, not because someone came back, but because you did. The you who had been buried under expectation, overgiving, self-sacrifice, and quiet compromise. The you who always believed you had to hold it all together so others wouldn't leave. That version of you may have cracked when they walked away. But what emerged from the fracture is something so much more true, so much more solid, so much more aligned. And now, the universe is responding to that. Now that your soul is no longer weighed down by proving, pleasing, or pretending, space is finally clearing for the blessings that were always meant for you but couldn't find you while you were lost in someone else's story. New opportunities are gathering, not just in love, but in work, in wealth, in purpose. That quiet inner shift you made, the one where you started saying no, where you stopped chasing, where you stopped explaining, that was the signal the universe needed. You've proven that you can hold your own energy, that you can trust your own voice, that you can build without needing applause or approval. And so now, the energy is shifting, quietly, powerfully. Doors that used to stay shut are now beginning to open, not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped forcing things that weren't meant for you. You're attracting things that match your truth now. People who see you fully, opportunities that don't require you to shrink, paths that feel aligned with your real rhythm, not the rhythm you pretended to keep to feel accepted. And maybe it feels strange at first. Maybe you're still tempted to think that the person who's coming back is the real reward, but deep down, you know that's not true. The reward was never them. The reward is you finally choosing yourself. The person returning is just the echo of an old test. A symbol of how far you've come. A mirror that gives you a chance to measure the distance between who you were when you begged to be chosen and who you are now, quietly, firmly choosing yourself. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it in your own body, the difference between longing and resonance. When they say the things you used to crave, your mind might remember. But your soul will know the difference. Because this time, your nervous system doesn't light up from desperation, it steadies itself with clarity. And that clarity tells you the truth. You are no longer the person who waits to be saved. You are the person who already rescued yourself. That is why the universe is rewarding you. Not because you stayed soft, but because you stayed awake, because you didn't harden, but you did learn, because you didn't turn cold, but you did grow wise. You stopped calling the bare minimum love. You stopped confusing anxiety for excitement. You stopped giving yourself away just to feel needed. And now, you're stepping into the golden era of your life. An era where your success is no longer delayed by emotional chaos, where your worth is not tied to someone else's ability to see it, where your time is spent not managing other people's inconsistencies, but building something meaningful with your own two hands. This is the chapter you write without apology. The one where your creativity flows again, where you have space to rest, where money, ideas, and purpose find you without resistance because your energy is no longer scattered. It's sacred. This is what you were always meant to rise into. Scorpio, not a life of proving your loyalty to someone who couldn't hold it, but a life of being so rooted in your truth that anything not meant for you falls away without needing a fight. So let them come back. Let them cry. Let them offer what they couldn't before. But let your decision come not from emotion, but from embodiment. Let it come from the place inside you that has felt peace since the day you stopped waiting. Let it come from the part of you that finally knows the love you've been looking for was never theirs to give, it was yours all along. And now that you've reclaimed it, nothing outside of you gets to determine your joy. Because here is the most sacred truth of all: your happiness was never supposed to come from being chosen. It was always going to come from choosing yourself, from choosing peace over chaos, wholeness over fantasy, reality over illusion, alignment over nostalgia. It was always going to come from the quiet decision to say, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not waiting anymore. And I'm not going back. Because your joy is no longer fragile. It doesn't depend on someone's apology or consistency or attention. Your joy is now rooted in your truth. In the way you hold yourself through lonely days, in the way you say no to what no longer fits, in the way you trust that what is meant for you will come without you having to lose yourself to keep it. And that's the thing about real transformation. Scorpio, it doesn't shout. It doesn't demand validation. It simply becomes undeniable. You are no longer broken. You are no longer hiding. You are no longer willing to be a second thought. And the universe sees that. It honors that. And it is responding with wealth, with real connections, with aligned opportunities, with a deep, grounded joy that no one can take from you because it was never based on anyone but you. This chapter of your life is not about reunion. It's about resurrection. It's not about who comes back. It's about who you've become in their absence. So choose wisely, not out of guilt, not out of history, but out of love for yourself, because you, Scorpio, are not meant to be remembered as someone who waited. You are meant to be remembered as someone who rose,